Ruth Holloway fell to her knees in the snow, her frozen fingers clutching her daughter's limp body against her chest. 5 days running. 5 days of hiding, starving, praying. And now, standing before a stranger's cabin in the dead of night, she had nothing left. No pride, no strength, no hope. Just a mother's desperate whisper into the howling wind. Please. Just one night in your barn. She's dying. The man in the doorway didn't speak. He simply stepped aside and pointed to his bed. That single act of kindness would change everything. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe to the channel and follow Ruth's journey to the very end. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. The child stopped breathing 3 miles from nowhere. Ruth felt it happen. One moment, Molly's small chest rose and fell against her own. The next, stillness. Complete and terrible stillness. No. Ruth's voice cracked through the frozen air. No, no, no. Molly, baby, wake up. She shook her daughter, gently at first, then harder. Her hands were numb, clumsy, useless things that couldn't feel the warmth that should have been there. Molly! The child's head lolled back. Her lips were blue, her eyes closed. Ruth dropped to her knees in the snow. The cold bit through her torn stockings, through flesh straight to bone. She didn't care. She pressed her mouth to Molly's, breathed into her once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. Please, God. The words came out broken. Please, take me instead. Take anything. Just not her. She breathed again, and again. Molly coughed. It was weak, barely a sound at all, but Ruth heard it like thunder. The child's chest heaved. Her small fingers twitched against Ruth's coat. That's it, baby. Ruth's tears froze on her cheeks. That's my brave girl. Stay with me, just a little longer. She pushed herself up. Her legs screamed in protest. 5 days of running had stripped everything from her strength, hope, dignity. But not this. Not the will to save her daughter. There was a light ahead, faint flickering through the blizzard like a dying star. A cabin, maybe. A chance. Ruth started walking. Silas McAllister heard the thump against his door before he heard the knock. He set down his coffee, his hand moving automatically to the rifle by the fireplace. 4 years alone on this land had taught him caution. Visitors after dark meant trouble. The kind that came with guns, or the kind that came with badges. Either way, nothing good. The knock came again. Weaker this time. Silas crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled open the door. A woman collapsed at his feet. She hit the floorboards hard, her body curling around a bundle in her arms. A child, Silas realized. Small, pale, wrapped in a quilt that had once been fine, but was now stiff with ice. Please. The woman's voice was barely a whisper. She didn't try to get up. Didn't seem capable of it. Just one night. The barn. We'll be gone by morning. Silas looked at her. Really looked. Her dress was torn at the shoulder, the fabric dark with something that might have been mud, or might have been blood. Her feet were bare, the skin raw and cracked. Her face was gaunt, hollow-cheeked, with eyes that held the kind of desperation he'd seen before on soldiers in the war on cattle during drought. The look of something that had been pushed past breaking. The barn's no place for a child, he said. The woman flinched like he'd struck her. Please, I'll do anything. Work for you. Cook. Clean. Anything. Just don't send us back into... Ma'am. Silas's voice cut through her rambling. I said the barn's no place for a child. Didn't say nothing about turning you away. She stared at him, not understanding. Silas stepped back and nodded toward the room behind him. Bed's through there. Take it. We can't. You can. He reached down not to grab her, but to offer his hand. Come on now. Let's get that little one warm. For a long moment the woman didn't move. Then slowly, She took his hand. Her fingers were ice. Silas felt the cold seep through his own calloused skin as he helped her to her feet. She swayed, nearly fell, and he caught her elbow to steady her. "Easy now." "Thank you." Her voice broke on the words. "Thank you." Silas guided her inside and closed the door against the howling wind. The child's fever hit before midnight. Silas had built the fire higher than usual, stacked blankets on the bed, heated water for the woman to wash her feet. He'd done everything he could think of, and it wasn't enough. "She's burning up." The woman, she still hadn't given her name, pressed a damp cloth to the child's forehead. 3 days now. I thought if I could just get her somewhere warm." Silas stood in the doorway watching. "You got any medicine?" "No." "What about willow bark feverfew?" "I don't know what those are." Her voice cracked. "I don't know anything. I wasn't raised for this. I was raised for parlors and piano lessons and—" She stopped, pressing her hand to her mouth. I'm sorry, you don't need to hear this. What I need is to help that child." Silas moved to the shelf above the stove, pulling down a small tin box. "I got willow bark tea. Bitter as sin, but it'll bring the fever down." "You do that for strangers." He didn't answer, just set the kettle over the fire and measured out the dried bark. The woman watched him, her eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. "Why? Why what? Why help us? You don't know us. You don't know what we've done, what we're running from." Silas's hands stilled on the kettle. "Reckon that's your business. And if we're criminals, if we've done something terrible—" He looked at her, then really looked, at the bruise yellowing on her cheekbone, at the way she flinched when he moved too quickly, at the protective curve of her body around the child. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I've known criminals, ridden with some in the war, killed a few when I had to." He turned back to the kettle. "You ain't no criminal. Neither is that little girl. Whatever you're running from, I reckon you had good reason." The woman's composure shattered. She didn't sob, didn't wail, just bent forward over the bed, her shoulders shaking with silent, gasping breaths. The kind of crying that came when a person had been holding on too long and couldn't hold on anymore. Silas let her be. Some griefs needed space. When the tea was ready, he poured it into a cup and set it on the table by the bed. "Get some of this into her if you can. Little sips. It'll help." The woman straightened, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't need thanks. Just need that child to get better." He moved toward the door. "I'll be by the fire if you need anything." "Wait." She stopped him with a word. "Your name. I don't even know your name." "Silas. Silas McAllister." "I'm Ruth." She swallowed hard. "Ruth Holloway. And this is Molly." Silas nodded. "Get some rest, Ruth. Morning'll come soon enough." Morning came, but the fever didn't break. Silas checked on them at dawn, found Ruth exactly where he'd left her, sitting beside the bed, Molly's small hand clutched in both of hers. She hadn't slept. He could see it in the shadows under her eyes, the tremor in her fingers. "She's no better," Ruth whispered. "The tea helped for a while, but now she's—" Molly's breathing was shallow, ragged. Her skin had taken on a grayish pallor that made Silas's chest tighten. "She needs a doctor." "No." Ruth's response was immediate, sharp. "No doctors. No town. No one can know we're here." "Ruth, you don't understand." She stood, putting herself between him and the child, like she expected him to drag them both out into the snow. "If he finds out where we are, he'll come for us. And this time he won't just bring us back. This time he'll—" Her voice broke. "He'll take her from me. Forever. He has friends, money, lawyers. I'm nothing. I have nothing. The courts will give her to him, and I'll never see her again." Silas absorbed this slowly. He, your husband. Ruth's silence was answer enough. He hurt you. Another silence. Then barely audible, yes. And the child? Ruth's jaw tightened. He slapped her. A week ago. First time he ever touched her. She spilled milk on his ledger, and he... She closed her eyes. I knew then. I knew if I didn't leave, he'd do to her what he's done to me. So I took her and I ran. How far back is he? I don't know. 2 days. Maybe 3. I tried to cover our tracks, but he's... She shook her head. Elijah's good at finding things. Good at getting what he wants. Silas crossed his arms. This Elijah, he got a last name. Tate. Elijah Tate. The name hit Silas like a punch to the gut. He knew that name. Everyone in the territory knew that name. Elijah Tate owned the general store in Bitter Creek. Owned half the town, some said. The kind of man who smiled at you while he counted out your change and talked about you like dirt the moment you walked out the door. I know him, Silas said flatly. Ruth's face went white. Then you know what he's capable of. I know he's a snake in a Sunday suit. I know he cheats ranchers on their supplies and calls it good business. I know his first wife died under questionable circumstances. She didn't die. Ruth's voice was barely audible. He killed her. Everyone knows it. No one can prove it. Silas let that settle. And you married him. I didn't have a choice. Ruth's laugh was bitter hollow. My father owed him money, a lot of money. Elijah offered to forgive the debt in exchange for... She gestured at herself. Me. I was 19. I didn't know what I was agreeing to. And now I'm 29. I've spent 10 years learning exactly what kind of man he is. She looked at Molly, her eyes fierce. But she won't. I'll die before I let him turn her into another trophy. Another thing he owns. Silas moved to the window, looking out at the snow-covered land. The blizzard had passed, leaving behind a world of blinding white. Beautiful and brutal. He comes here, Silas said slowly. He'll find more than he bargained for. Ruth stared at him. You'd fight him for strangers. Dunn told you, you ain't strangers, you're guests in my home. He turned to face her. And I don't take kindly to men who hurt women and children. Never have. Silas, you don't understand. Elijah doesn't fight fair. He has brothers, hired men. He'll come with 12 guns if he has to. Then I'll need to be ready for 12 guns. Why? The word burst out of her raw with confusion. Why would you risk that for us? Silas was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough, like the words were being dragged from somewhere deep. I had a family once. Wife named Sarah. Daughter named Emma. She was about Molly's age when... He stopped, cleared his throat. There was a fire. I was hunting 2 days' ride from home. By the time I got back, there was nothing left but ash. Ruth's hand flew to her mouth. I couldn't save them. Silas's voice was steady, but his eyes were not. I've carried that with me for 4 years. Every day I wake up and I think about what I should have done different. What I could have done to keep them safe. He looked at Molly at the small rise and fall of her chest. I can't change what happened to them, but I can make damn sure it doesn't happen to you. Ruth's tears spilled over. She didn't try to hide them this time. Silas, get some rest. His voice was gruff, covering the emotion underneath. I'll watch the road. By noon, Molly's fever broke. Ruth woke from a fitful doze to find her daughter's eyes open, focused clear for the first time in days. Mama. I'm here, baby. Ruth gathered Molly into her arms, holding her so tight she was afraid she might break her. I'm right here. Where are we? Somewhere safe. Molly's brow furrowed. Is Papa coming? Ruth's blood went cold. No, sweetheart. Papa's not coming. Promise. The word hit Ruth like a blade. How many times had Molly heard her make promises she couldn't keep? How many times had she sworn things would get better only for Elijah to prove her wrong? "I promise," Ruth said, and this time she meant it. Silas appeared in the doorway, a bowl of broth in his hands. He stopped when he saw Molly awake, something shifting in his face, something that might have been relief. "She's better?" Ruth said, her voice thick with tears. "I can see that." Silas crossed to the bed, kneeling down so he was at Molly's level. "Hey there, little miss. You gave your mama quite a scare." Molly studied him with the solemn intensity only children possess. "Who are you?" "Name's Silas. I'm a friend." "Mama says I shouldn't talk to strangers." "Your mama's a smart woman." Silas held out the bowl. "You hungry?" Molly nodded slowly. She reached for the broth, then stopped, looking at Ruth for permission. "It's okay, baby. Mr. McAllister is helping us." Molly took the bowl, carefully cradling it in both hands. She took a sip, then another, her eyes never leaving Silas's face. "You have a beard," she observed. "I do. Papa has a beard too, but his is scratchy." She took another sip. "Yours looks soft." Silas's mouth twitched. "I'll take that as a compliment." Ruth watched the exchange, something warm and painful blooming in her chest. Molly hadn't spoken this much to a man in months. She'd learned early to stay quiet around Elijah, to make herself small and visible. Seeing her talk freely now without fear, it was almost enough to make Ruth believe they might actually be safe. Almost. The riders appeared at dusk. Silas saw the dust first, a smudge on the horizon that shouldn't have been there. He set down his coffee and moved to the window, watching. 3 riders, moving fast, too fast for friendly visitors. "Ruth." She was beside him in an instant, Molly clutched to her chest. One look at the horizon, and her face went gray. "It's him," she whispered. "Oh God, it's him." Silas crossed to the mantel and took down his rifle. "Take Molly to the cellar. Trapdoors under the rug by the stove. You'll be safe down there." "Silas." "Now, Ruth." She didn't argue. She grabbed Molly and ran, pulling back the rug, lifting the heavy wooden door. Silas heard her footsteps on the ladder, the soft thud of the door closing above them. He checked the rifle. 6 rounds. His revolver held another 6. 12 shots for 3 men. He'd have to make them count. The riders slowed as they approached the cabin, spreading into a loose formation. The one in the center sat taller than the others, his shoulders broad beneath a fine wool coat. Even at this distance, Silas could see the way he carried himself, like a man who'd never been told no. Silas stepped onto the porch, rifle resting across his chest. The lead rider pulled up 20 yards out. He tipped his hat, a mockery of politeness. "Evening." His voice was smooth, cultured, wrong for this country. "I'm looking for my wife and daughter. I believe they may have passed this way." Silas said nothing. "Dark-haired woman, pretty thing when she's not being difficult. Little girl about 5 years old." The rider's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You wouldn't happen to have seen them, would you?" Silas met his gaze. "Can't say I have." "That's so." The rider's smile thinned. "Mind if I have a look around just to set my mind at ease?" "I mind." A beat of silence. The wind picked up, stirring snow across the frozen ground. "I don't believe I caught your name, friend." "Didn't give it." The rider's jaw tightened. "Well, let me give you mine. I'm Elijah Tate. Perhaps you've heard of me." "Perhaps." "Then you know I'm not a man to be trifled with." Elijah leaned forward in his saddle. "And you know that when I want something, I get it. One way or another." Silas raised the rifle slightly, just enough to make his meaning clear. "Mr. Tate, I'm going to say this once. There ain't no woman here. There ain't no child. And even if there was, they wouldn't be going anywhere with you. Now turn your horses around and ride out, and I'll forget you ever came." Elijah's mask of civility cracked. For just a moment, Silas saw what Ruth had described, the cruelty underneath the rage of a man denied. "You're making a mistake." Elijah said quietly. Wouldn't be my first. It might be your last. Silas smiled. It was not a kind smile. You're welcome to test that theory, Mr. Tate, but I reckon you'll find it an expensive lesson. The two men flanking Elijah shifted nervously, their hands hovering near their guns. Elijah raised a hand, stilling them. We'll leave, he said. For now. But know this, whoever you are, that woman belongs to me. That child is my blood, and I will have them back. If I have to burn this cabin to the ground with you inside it, I will have them back. Silas didn't blink. You come back here, Mr. Tate. You better bring more men, because the ones you got won't be enough. Elijah stared at him for a long, cold moment. Then he pulled his horse around and rode into the gathering dark. Silas watched until they disappeared over the ridge. Only then did he lower the rifle. Behind him, the trap door creaked open. Is he gone? Ruth's voice trembled. For now. She climbed out of the cellar, Molly in her arms. The child was crying softly, her face buried in Ruth's shoulder. He'll come back, Ruth said. You know he will? I know. And when he does, he'll bring more men. An army, if he has to. Silas turned to face her. Then we'd best be ready. Ruth stared at him. Silas, you can't. Already told you, Ruth. This ain't just your fight anymore. He crossed to the stove, set the rifle down, and poured 2 cups of coffee. Now drink this, and tell me everything you know about Elijah Tate. Every weakness, every fear, every man he might bring with him. Ruth took the cup with shaking hands. Why are you doing this? Silas looked at her, at the bruise on her cheek, at the child in her arms, at the fierce determination burning behind her exhaustion. Because someone should, he said simply. And in that moment, Ruth Holloway began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd found something she'd never dared hope for. A man worth trusting. Ruth sat at the table, her hands wrapped around the coffee cup, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Molly had finally fallen asleep in the back room, exhausted from crying, and the silence that followed felt heavier than the storm outside. Start from the beginning, Silas said. Everything you know. Ruth took a shaky breath. Elijah has 3 brothers, Marcus, Toby, and Cole. Marcus is the oldest, the smart one. He handles the money, the legal matters. Toby's the youngest, not much more than a boy, but mean as a rattlesnake. Cole, she paused. Cole is the dangerous one. He was in prison for killing a man in Bozeman. Elijah paid to have him released. How many guns can he raise? 12, maybe more. He pays well, and men in Bitter Creek owe him favors. Ruth's voice dropped. He owns the sheriff Silas. Bought him years ago. Any crime Elijah commits, Sheriff Dawson looks the other way. Silas absorbed this quietly. What about the law outside Bitter Creek? There's a territorial marshal in Helena, but Elijah has friends there too. Judges, politicians. Ruth laughed bitterly. You don't understand how deep his roots go. He's been building this empire for 20 years. I'm nothing against that. You ain't nothing. I'm a woman with no money, no family, no proof of what he's done. Ruth set down the cup, her hands trembling. The one time I tried to report him, Elijah found out before I even reached the marshal's office. He broke 3 of my ribs and told everyone I fell down the stairs. Silas's jaw tightened. And they believed him. They wanted to believe him. It's easier that way. Ruth met his eyes. That's what you're up against, Silas. Not just one man. A whole system built to protect men like him. Systems can be broken. Not by one rancher with a rifle. Silas leaned back in his chair. Maybe not, but I ain't planning to fight fair. Ruth stared at him. What do you mean? I mean Elijah Tate ain't the only one who knows how to play dirty. Silas stood, moving to the window. I got a sister in town, Hattie McAllister. She runs the boarding house on Main Street, knows everything that happens in Bitter Creek before it happens. You'd bring your sister into this. Hattie can handle herself. She's been wanting a reason to take Elijah down for years. Silas turned to face Ruth. He cheated her late husband on a land deal, left her nearly destitute. She ain't forgotten. Ruth's eyes widened. You never mentioned a sister. You never asked. A small sound came from the doorway. They both turned to find Molly standing there, her rag doll clutched against her chest, tears streaming down her face. Mama, I had a bad dream. Ruth started to rise, but Silas was closer. He knelt down, bringing himself to Molly's level. What kind of bad dream? Molly sniffled. The bad man was chasing us. He caught Mama and he hurt her. And I couldn't help. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. Silas's heart clenched. He remembered Emma having nightmares like this. Remembered the way she'd crawl into his lap and bury her face against his chest. Can I tell you something, Molly? She nodded slowly. Dreams are just stories our heads make up when we're scared. They ain't real. They can't hurt you. He reached out gently, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. And as long as you're in this cabin, ain't nobody going to hurt your mama. You got my word on that. Molly studied him with those solemn eyes. You promise. I promise. Cross your heart. Silas drew an X over his chest with his finger. Cross my heart. Molly threw her arms around his neck. The gesture was so sudden, so trusting, that Silas froze. He hadn't held a child since Emma. Hadn't let himself. Slowly, carefully, he wrapped his arms around her small body. Ruth watched from the table, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. When Molly finally pulled back, she looked up at Silas with something new in her eyes. Can I call you Mr. Silas? You can call me whatever you like. I like Silas, just Silas. She yawned. Will you be here when I wake up? I'll be here. Molly nodded satisfied and padded back to the bedroom. Ruth followed, tucking her daughter in, whispering words too soft for Silas to hear. When she returned, her composure had cracked. She doesn't do that. She doesn't. Elijah made sure she was afraid of men. All men. She won't even look the shopkeeper in the eye. Children know, Silas said simply. They know who's safe and who ain't. Ruth sank into the chair across from him. What happens now? Now we plan. Elijah won't wait long. He's got his pride to think about. Man like him, he can't let a woman walk away. It'd make him look weak. So he'll come back. Tomorrow maybe. Day after at the latest. Silas pulled a piece of paper from the shelf along with a stub of pencil. Draw me a map of Bitter Creek. Every building Elijah owns, every place his men might gather. Ruth took the pencil with uncertain hands. I'm not much of an artist. Don't need pretty, just need accurate. She began to sketch her movements, becoming more confident as she worked. The general store, the saloon, Elijah's house on the hill, the sheriff's office, the church where they'd been married. Silas watched her work, noting the way she frowned in concentration, the way her tongue pressed against her lip when she was thinking. She was stronger than she knew. 10 years with a monster like Elijah, and she was still here, still fighting. You're good at this, he said. Ruth looked up surprised. At drawing maps? At thinking? Planning? He tapped the paper. This is detailed. Thorough. Most folks couldn't do half as well from memory. A faint blush crept across Ruth's cheeks. I used to keep Elijah's books. He didn't trust anyone else with the numbers. You know his finances. Better than he does. He never paid attention to the details. She paused, a strange look crossing her face. I know where every penny comes from and where it goes, including the money he uses to pay off the sheriff, including the bribes to the judge and Helena. Silas leaned forward. You could prove it. If I had his ledgers, yes, but they're locked in his office. He never lets anyone near them. Where's the key? He keeps it on his person, always. Ruth shook her head. It doesn't matter. Even if I had the ledgers, who would I show them to? Every lawman in the territory is in his pocket. Not every lawman. Silas's voice was quiet. There's a federal marshal rides through here once a month. Name's Tom Brennan. Knew him during the war. He's honest. Maybe the only honest man left in Montana. Ruth's eyes widened. You'd go to him? If we had proof, yes. But the ledgers, leave that to me. Ruth grabbed his arm. Silas, no. If you go into Bitter Creek, they'll kill you. Elijah's men watch every road, every trail. Then I won't take the road. You can't. Ruth. Silas covered her hand with his own. I've been surviving in this territory for 15 years. I know paths Elijah Tate's never heard of. I can get in and out without being seen. And if you're wrong, if they catch you, then you take Molly and you run. Head west. Don't stop until you reach California. Ruth's grip tightened. I won't leave you. You will if it means keeping your daughter safe. They stared at each other, the fire crackling between them. Ruth's eyes glistened. I just found you, she whispered. I can't lose you too. Silas's breath caught. For a moment he saw Sarah in her face. Not the features, but the spirit. The fierce protective love that burned beneath the exhaustion. You won't lose me. His voice was rougher than he intended. But I need you to trust me. I do trust you. That's what scares me. The admission hung in the air. Silas released her hand slowly, reluctantly. Get some sleep. I'll take first watch. Ruth didn't argue. She rose, pausing at the doorway to the back room. Silas? Yeah. Thank you. For everything. For Molly. For making her feel safe. Her voice broke. No one's ever done that before. Not even me. She disappeared into the darkness before he could respond. Silas sat by the fire rifle across his knees and tried not to think about how much he had to lose. Dawn came gray and cold. Silas woke Ruth with a gentle touch on her shoulder, pressing a cup of hot coffee into her hands before she could fully open her eyes. We need to talk. Ruth sat up, instantly alert. What happened? Nothing yet, but I've been thinking. Silas crouched beside the bed, keeping his voice low so as not to wake Molly. You said you kept Elijah's books. You know numbers. Yes. Can you shoot? Ruth blinked. No. Elijah never allowed. Then I'm going to teach you. He stood holding out his hand. Ruth took it, letting him pull her to her feet. They moved outside into the bitter cold. Silas handed her his revolver, showing her how to hold it, how to aim, how to breathe. Don't jerk the trigger. Squeeze it slow, like you're closing a door you don't want to make noise. Ruth raised the gun, her arms trembling. She fired. The shot went wide, kicking up snow 20 feet from the target Silas had set up. Again. She fired again. Closer this time. Good. Now breathe out before you shoot. Let everything go still. Ruth closed her eyes, inhaled, exhaled slowly. When she opened them again, something had changed in her face. She raised the gun and fired. The tin can spun off its post. I hit it. Her voice held wonder. I actually hit it. You're a natural. Ruth turned to him, the gun still in her hand. Elijah never let me touch a weapon. Said women had no business with guns. Elijah was a fool. A ghost of a smile crossed Ruth's face. He was a lot of things. They practiced for another hour until Ruth could hit the target 3 times out of 5. Her arms ached. Her hands were raw from the cold, but there was a new light in her eyes. Purpose. Power. When they went back inside, Molly was awake, sitting at the table with her rag doll. I heard the loud noises, she said. Were you shooting bad men? Just practicing, Ruth said. So I can protect you. Molly nodded solemnly. Can I learn too? When you're older. How much older? A lot older. Molly sighed, the weight of the world on her small shoulders. Then she brightened, looking at Silas. I made you something. She held out a scrap of paper folded clumsily into what might have been a horse, or a dog, or possibly a very lumpy cloud. "It's a horse," Molly said, anticipating his confusion. "Like the one you carved, but made of paper." Silas took it carefully, turning it over in his hands. His throat tightened. "It's beautiful. You really like it. I really like it." He looked at her, at the hope shining in her eyes. "I'm going to keep it forever." Molly beamed. Ruth watched the exchange, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This man, this quiet, scarred, lonely man, was everything Elijah pretended to be and never was. Gentle without weakness, strong without cruelty, present without demand. She was falling for him. She knew it, and it terrified her. The rider appeared at noon. Silas saw him first, a lone figure approaching from the east. Not Elijah. Too small, too young. But wearing Elijah's colors. "Stay inside." Silas grabbed his rifle. "Keep Molly quiet." Ruth pulled her daughter into the back room, her heart hammering. Silas stepped onto the porch, rifle raised. The rider stopped 50 feet out, hands raised in surrender. He was barely more than a boy, 17 maybe, with a face full of freckles and fear. "I ain't armed," the boy called. "Mr. Tate sent me with a message. Then deliver it and ride out." The boy reached slowly into his coat, pulling out a folded paper. He tossed it toward the porch. It landed in the snow at Silas's feet. "Mr. Tate says you got till sundown tomorrow. Send out his wife and daughter, and he'll let you live. Keep them and—" The boy swallowed. "He'll burn everything you love to the ground, starting with the woman." Silas's finger tightened on the trigger. "You tell Elijah Tate something for me." "Yes, sir." "Tell him I don't negotiate with cowards. Tell him if he wants his wife he can come get her himself. And tell him—" Silas's voice dropped to something cold and deadly. "Tell him I know what he did to his first wife, and I aim to make sure the whole territory knows too." The boy's face went white. "Mr. Tate won't like that." "I'm counting on it." The boy wheeled his horse and rode hard, disappearing over the ridge in a cloud of snow. Silas picked up the paper, unfolded it. The message was short, written in elegant script. "You cannot protect her. You cannot save her. She is mine, and she will always be mine. Return what belongs to me, or suffer the consequences. E.T." He crumpled the paper in his fist. Ruth appeared in the doorway, Molly hiding behind her legs. What did it say? Silas turned his face hard. "Nothing that matters." "Silas." "He's trying to scare us. It's what men like him do." He tossed the crumpled paper into the fire. "But I've faced scarier things than Elijah Tate, and I'm still standing." Ruth moved toward him, stopping inches away. "Let me see the letter." "I burned it." "Then tell me what it said." Silas met her eyes. "He called you his property, said you'll always belong to him." Ruth's jaw set. "I am no one's property." "I know that." "Does he?" "He will." Silas's hand found hers, squeezed once. "By the time this is over, the whole territory will know exactly what kind of man Elijah Tate is, and they'll know exactly what kind of woman you are." Ruth looked up at him, her eyes fierce. "And what kind of woman is that?" "The kind who walks through fire and comes out stronger. The kind who protects her daughter against impossible odds. The kind who—" He stopped himself, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "The kind who— what?" Ruth's voice was barely a whisper. Silas released her hand, stepped back. "The kind who deserves better than she's been given." Ruth's breath caught. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Molly tugged at her mother's dress. "Mama, I'm hungry." The spell broke. Ruth laughed, wiping her eyes. "Of course you are, baby. Let's find you something to eat." Silas watched them move to the stove, mother and daughter, and felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been frozen for 4 years beginning to thaw. He couldn't afford to feel this. Not now. Not with Elijah Tate's threat hanging over them like a blade. But he felt it anyway. That night after Molly was asleep, Ruth found Silas standing by the window staring out at the darkness. "You should rest," she said. "Can't. Because of the letter. Because of a lot of things." He didn't turn around. "I've been alone a long time, Ruth. I told myself it was easier that way. Safer. Can't lose what you don't have." Ruth moved closer. "And now I've got something to lose." His voice was rough. "Two somethings." Ruth's heart stopped. "Silas? I know it ain't proper. You're still married legally speaking, and you've got enough troubles without Silas." Ruth touched his arm, turning him to face her. "I stopped being married the first time Elijah raised his hand to me. Whatever the law says, that man is not my husband. He never was." Silas searched her face. "Ruth, I don't know how to do this anymore. It's been so long since I let myself—" "I know." Ruth's hand moved to his cheek, rough with stubble. "I don't know how to do this either. But I know that when I look at you, I feel safe for the first time in 10 years. I know that when Molly looks at you, she sees something good. And I know that whatever happens tomorrow, I don't want to face it without you." Silas covered her hand with his own. "You won't have to." They stood like that for a long moment, foreheads almost touching breath, mingling in the cold air. Then Ruth pulled back. "We should sleep. Tomorrow. Tomorrow we fight." "Yes." Ruth moved toward the back room, then paused. "Silas." "Yeah. Thank you for not being him." She disappeared into the darkness. Silas turned back to the window, his heart pounding. Outside in the distance he saw them. Lights, moving through the darkness. Too many to count. Elijah wasn't waiting until sundown. He was coming now. Silas grabbed Ruth's arm before she reached the bedroom door. "Don't wake her yet." Ruth spun around, saw his face, and her blood went cold. "What is it?" "Lights, coming from the east, a lot of them." Ruth rushed to the window. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Oh God! Oh God, he didn't wait!" "No, he didn't." Silas was already moving, grabbing ammunition from the shelf, checking the rifle. "How many men does he have?" "I don't know. 10, 12. Ruth's voice shook. "Silas, we can't fight that many." "We don't have to fight them all. Just the ones who get close." "That's not a plan. That's suicide." Silas stopped, turned to face her. "You got a better idea." Ruth's mind raced. The cellar. They could hide in the cellar. But Elijah would search. He'd tear the cabin apart board by board until he found them. Running impossible. Molly couldn't survive another night in the cold, and they'd be caught before they made it a mile. The horses. The words came out before she fully formed the thought. "You have horses in the barn." "2. Both tired from yesterday." "It's better than nothing. I can ride." "Molly can ride with me. We go now before they get close and you—" "I ain't running." "Silas." "I said I ain't running." His voice was hard final. "You go. Take Molly and ride west. I'll hold them here as long as I can." "And then what, Di?" Ruth grabbed his shirt, her fingers twisting in the fabric. "I won't let you die for us." "It ain't about letting. It's about choosing." Silas covered her hands with his own. "I already lost one family because I wasn't there to protect them. I won't make that mistake again. This isn't the same thing. You're right, it ain't." His eyes met hers. "This time I get to choose. This time I can make it count." Tears streamed down Ruth's face. "You stupid, stubborn man." "Been called worse." A small voice came from the doorway. "Mama." They both turned. Molly stood there clutching her rag doll, her eyes wide with fear. "Why is Mama crying?" Ruth wiped her face quickly, crossing to her daughter. I'm okay, baby. Everything's okay. Are the bad men coming? Ruth couldn't lie, not to those eyes. Yes, sweetheart, the bad men are coming. Molly's lip trembled. Is Papa with them? Yes. The child went very still. Then, in a voice that was far too old for her years, I don't want to go back, Mama. Please don't make me go back. Ruth pulled her daughter into her arms. You're never going back, I promise. Silas knelt beside them. Molly, listen to me. Your mama's going to take you somewhere safe, okay? You're going to ride the horses like we talked about. What about you? I'm going to stay here and make sure the bad men can't follow. Molly's eyes filled with tears. But what if they hurt you? Silas's chest tightened. They won't. Promise. He hesitated. He couldn't promise. Couldn't lie to her like that. I promise I'll do everything I can to come find you. How's that? Molly threw her arms around his neck. I don't want you to go away. I know, sweetheart. I know. Ruth watched them, her heart breaking. This man, this impossible, wonderful man. In 3 days he'd given Molly more safety, more kindness, more love than Elijah had given in 5 years. And now she had to leave him behind. We need to go. Ruth's voice cracked. Before they get closer. Silas nodded, disentangling himself from Molly's arms. I'll saddle the horses. He moved toward the door, but Ruth caught his hand. Silas, wait. She kissed him, hard, fast, desperate, the kind of kiss that said everything words couldn't. When she pulled back, his eyes were bright. Find us, she whispered. When this is over, find us. I will. He was gone before she could say anything else. Ruth dressed Molly quickly, wrapping her in every blanket she could find. The child didn't complain, didn't cry. She just held onto her rag doll and watched her mother with those 2 old eyes. We're going to ride very fast, Ruth said, and you're going to hold on to me tight. Can you do that? Yes, Mama. Good girl. They met Silas at the barn. He'd saddled both horses, the stronger one already loaded with supplies. He lifted Molly onto the saddle, then helped Ruth up behind her. Head west. There's a town called Ridgewater about 30 miles from here. Ask for Margaret Cooper. Tell her Silas sent you. She'll keep you safe. Margaret Cooper, Ridgewater. She's a friend. One of the only people I trust. Silas handed Ruth the reins, his hand lingering on hers. Don't stop for anything. Don't look back. Silas. A gunshot cracked through the night. The horses reared. Ruth clung to Molly, fighting to keep her seat. Silas grabbed the bridle, steadying them. Go now. Ruth kicked the horse into motion. They burst from the barn at full gallop, the cold wind cutting like knives. Molly pressed against her chest, silent, trusting. Behind them, more gunshots, shouting. The thunder of hooves. Ruth didn't look back. She rode harder than she'd ever ridden in her life, the horse's hooves pounding against frozen ground. The darkness swallowed them whole. Please, she prayed, please let him be okay. Please let him find us. The horse stumbled. Ruth felt it happen in slow motion, the foreleg catching on something, the lurch forward, the terrible, sickening sensation of falling. She threw her body around Molly as they hit the ground. Pain exploded through Ruth's shoulder. She bit back a scream, rolling to protect her daughter. Molly! Molly! Are you hurt? Mama! The child's voice was high with terror. Mama! I'm scared. I know, baby. I know. Ruth pushed herself up, gasping at the fire in her shoulder. Are you hurt? Tell me if you're hurt. My arm hurts a little. Ruth examined her quickly, a scrape on her forearm. Nothing broken. Thank God. The horse struggled to its feet, favoring its right foreleg. Lame. They weren't going anywhere fast now. Mama, I hear them. Ruth froze, listened. Hoofbeats. Getting closer. Come on. She grabbed Molly's hand, pulling her toward a cluster of rocks. We have to hide. They ran. Ruth's shoulders screamed with every step, but she didn't slow down. She pushed Molly into a crevice between two boulders, then squeezed in after her. Don't make a sound, Ruth whispered. Not a single sound. Molly nodded, pressing her face against Ruth's chest. The hoofbeats grew louder. Closer. Ruth's hand closed around the revolver Silas had given her. 6 shots. She'd have to make them count. A rider appeared on the ridge above them. Then another. Then a third. They went this way, someone shouted. I can see the horse. Spread out. Find them. Ruth pressed deeper into the shadows, her arms wrapped around Molly. Please, please don't let them see us. A torch passed within feet of their hiding place. Ruth held her breath. Nothing here. Check the rocks. Footsteps crunched on snow. Coming closer. Closer. Ruth raised the revolver. A face appeared at the entrance to their hiding spot. Young, freckled. The same boy who'd delivered Elijah's message. His eyes went wide. Ruth pulled the trigger. The gun roared. The boy fell back with a scream, clutching his shoulder. She's here! She's armed! Ruth grabbed Molly and ran. No direction, no plan, just movement, just survival. There she is. A rider cut in front of them. Ruth skidded to a stop, raising the gun again. Don't be stupid, Ruth. The voice froze her blood. Elijah Tate sat on his horse, looking down at her with that smile she'd learned to fear. The smile that always came before the pain. Put the gun down. You're only making this harder. Stay back. Ruth's voice shook, but her aim didn't waver. I'll shoot. No, you won't. Elijah dismounted slowly, hands raised in mock surrender. You're not a killer, Ruth. You never were. You don't know what I am anymore. Oh, but I do. He took a step closer. I know exactly what you are. You're mine. I was never yours. That's where you're wrong. Another step. The moment your father signed that paper, you became my property, my wife, my responsibility. His eyes moved to Molly, and so did she. Molly whimpered. Ruth pulled her closer. Touch her, and I'll kill you. Elijah laughed. There's my Ruth. There's that fire I fell in love with. He was close now, too close. But you won't shoot me, you know why, because you know what happens if you do. He gestured behind him. A dozen riders waited in the darkness, armed, ready. You kill me, they kill you. And then Molly goes to my brother Marcus. You want that? You want Marcus raising our daughter. Ruth's gun hand wavered. That's what I thought. Elijah reached out slowly and closed his fingers around the barrel. Give me the gun, Ruth. No. Give me the gun. I said no. Elijah's smile vanished. You don't get to say no to me. He ripped the gun from her grip and struck her across the face. Ruth felt her cheek exploding with pain. Molly screamed. Mama! Quiet. Elijah grabbed Molly's arm, yanking her away. You've caused enough trouble, little girl. Don't touch her. Ruth lunged forward, but 2 of Elijah's men caught her, pinning her arms behind her back. Elijah, please. She's just a child. She's my child, and she needs to learn respect. Elijah crouched in front of Molly, his voice going soft, dangerous. Isn't that right, Molly? You need to learn what happens when you disobey your father. Molly was crying great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I want Mama. I want Silas. Elijah's face darkened. Silas? Who the hell is Silas? Ruth's blood went cold. Elijah. Is that the rancher, the one who thought he could keep you from me? Elijah stood, his jaw tightening. Where is he? He's gone. He rode off when he saw you coming. Liar. Elijah backhanded her again. I saw the lights in that cabin. Someone was there. Where is he? I don't know. Elijah grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. You're protecting him. Why? What is he to you? Ruth spat in his face. For a moment, Elijah didn't move. Then slowly, he wiped the spit from his cheek. Marcus. His brother stepped forward. Tall, cold-eyed. The smart one Ruth had called him. Take Molly back to town. Put her in the cellar. No food until I say otherwise. No. Ruth thrashed against the men holding her. Elijah, please, don't do this. You did this, Ruth. You and your foolish pride. Elijah watched as Marcus lifted the screaming child onto his horse. Maybe a few days in the dark will teach her to appreciate what she has. She's 5 years old. Old enough to learn. Marcus rode off, Molly's screams fading into the distance. Ruth collapsed against her captors, sobbing. Now! Elijah turned back to her, his face empty of everything but cold rage. Let's go find this Silas of yours. I want to meet the man who thought he could take what's mine. They dragged Ruth onto a horse and rode toward the cabin. Every hoofbeat felt like a countdown. Every second brought them closer to Silas. She'd failed to escape, failed to protect Molly, failed to save the one good man she'd ever known. The cabin came into view, dark, silent. Elijah raised his hand, signaling his men to stop. Spread out, surround the building. If he runs, shoot him. The riders dispersed. Elijah dismounted, pulling Ruth down with him. Call to him. Ruth shook her head. Call to him, or I'll drag you in there and make you watch while my men tear him apart piece by piece. Ruth's voice broke. Silas, don't shoot. They have Molly. Silence. Then slowly the cabin door opened. Silas stepped out, his hands raised. His rifle lay on the ground behind him. Let her go, Tate. Elijah laughed. Let her go. I just got her back. She ain't yours. She never was. See, that's where you're wrong. Elijah shoved Ruth forward. She stumbled, caught herself, and Silas was there steadying her. She's been mine for 10 years. She'll be mine till the day she dies. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. Elijah drew his revolver, leveling it at Silas's chest. But first I want to know something. What exactly did you think was going to happen here? You'd play hero, ride off into the sunset with my wife and daughter, live happily ever after. Silas said nothing. That's not how the world works, friend. Men like me, we don't lose. We don't let go of what's ours. And we certainly don't let some dirt-poor rancher make us look like fools. You don't need my help for that. Elijah's finger tightened on the trigger. Elijah, don't. Ruth stepped in front of Silas, shielding him with her body. Kill him, and I'll never stop fighting you. Never. I'll make your life hell until the day one of us dies. You already make my life hell. Then let him go. Send him away. I'll come back with you. I won't fight anymore. I'll be the wife you wanted. Just, please, don't kill him. Silas grabbed her arm. Ruth, no. Stay out of this. Ruth didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on Elijah, on that cold, calculating face. What do you say, Elijah? You get your wife back. Your reputation stays intact. Everyone wins. Elijah studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he lowered the gun. You'd do that. Give yourself up for him. Yes. Why? Ruth's voice was steady. Because he showed me what a real man looks like, and I won't let you destroy him the way you've destroyed me. Something flickered in Elijah's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or jealousy. Fine. He holstered the gun. We have a deal. You come with me peacefully, and your rancher friend gets to live. Ruth, don't do this. Silas's voice was desperate. We can fight. We can... They have Molly. Ruth finally turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. Marcus took her. She's alone, Silas. Scared and alone. I have to go. Then I'm coming with you. No. You're going to find Marshal Brennan. You're going to tell him everything. The bribes, the beatings, his first wife. Ruth gripped his hands. You're going to make sure the whole territory knows what Elijah Tate really is. Ruth, promise me. Silas's jaw clenched. Every instinct screamed at him to fight to grab Ruth and run to burn everything down before he let Elijah take her. But Molly was alone, and Ruth was right. I promise. Ruth smiled through her tears. Then she kissed him one last time, soft and sweet, and full of everything they'd never get to say. Find us, she whispered. Find us and bring us home. She turned and walked to Elijah's horse. He helped her mount his hand, lingering on her waist in a possessive grip that made Silas's blood boil. Smart choice, Ruth. Elijah looked at Silas, a smile playing on his lips. As for you, rancher, if I ever see you again, I'll put a bullet between your eyes. Consider this your only warning. He mounted behind Ruth and kicked the horse into motion. His men followed, disappearing into the night. Silas stood alone in front of his cabin, his hands shaking with rage. Find Marshal Brennan. Tell him everything. He turned and strode toward the barn. There was one horse left, tired but strong enough. Silas saddled up and rode east toward Helena. He had a promise to keep. Silas rode through the night without stopping. The horse was exhausted. He could feel it in every stride, the way the animal's muscles trembled, the way its breath came in ragged gasps. But he couldn't slow down. Every minute that passed was another minute Ruth spent in Elijah's hands. Another minute Molly spent alone in the dark. Helena was a 2-day ride under normal conditions. Silas planned to make it in one. The sun was rising when he reached the outskirts of town. His horse stumbled, nearly going down, and Silas dismounted quickly, leading the animal the rest of the way on foot. Easy, boy. Easy. Just a little further. The territorial marshal's office sat at the end of Main Street, a squat brick building with bars on the windows. Silas tied his horse to the post outside and pushed through the door. A deputy looked up from behind a desk, his eyes widening at the sight of Silas, trail-worn, covered in dust and sweat, looking like he'd ridden straight out of hell. I need to see Marshal Brennan. He ain't here. Silas's blood went cold. Where is he? Rode out yesterday. Some trouble up in Butte. When's he coming back? The deputy shrugged. Week, maybe. Could be longer. A week. Ruth didn't have a week. Molly didn't have a week. There anyone else I can talk to? Anyone with authority? Just me. The deputy leaned back in his chair. What's this about? Silas hesitated. Could he trust this man? He didn't know him. Didn't know whose payroll he might be on. It's about Elijah Tate. The deputy's expression changed. Just for a moment, a flicker of something. Fear, maybe. Or recognition. What about him? He's holding a woman and her child against their will. Beating them. Threatening to kill anyone who tries to help. The deputy was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, crossing to the window and looking out. You got proof. The woman's testimony. My testimony. And if I can get my hands on his ledgers, proof that he's been bribing half the territory. Ledgers. The deputy turned back to face him. You know where they are. Locked in his office, his house in Bitter Creek. And you're planning to break in and steal them. If I have to. The deputy studied him. You know Tate's got the sheriff in Bitter Creek bought and paid for. You show your face there, you're a dead man. I know. And you're going anyway. I made a promise. Something shifted in the deputy's face. He moved back to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a badge. Name's Samuel Curtis. I've been collecting evidence on Elijah Tate for 3 years. Never could get enough to move on him. He pinned the badge to his chest. Looks like you might be the break I've been waiting for. Silas stared at him. You're coming with me? Someone's got to keep you from getting yourself killed. Curtis grabbed his coat and hat. Besides, I've been wanting to take that bastard down since he cheated my father out of his ranch. Consider this personal. They rode out within the hour, Curtis on a fresh horse from the marshal's stable. He filled Silas in as they traveled everything he'd learned about Elijah Tate's operation. He's got fingers in everything: mining, cattle, land deals, most of it legal just barely. But the stuff that ain't legal. Curtis shook his head. Bribes to judges, payoffs to sheriffs. I heard rumors he had his first wife killed when she threatened to expose him. Ruth told me about that. Ruth Holloway, that's his current wife. That's her. She willing to testify. She'll do whatever it takes to protect her daughter. Curtis nodded slowly. Then we might actually have a chance. They reached the outskirts of Bitter Creek as the sun began to set. Curtis pulled his horse to a stop, scanning the town below. We can't just ride in. Tate's got men watching every road. I know a back way, through the canyon. Show me. They circled wide, approaching the town from the north. Silas led them through a narrow ravine that opened behind the church, a path he'd used years ago when he was courting Sarah. The memory hit him like a fist, but he pushed it aside. No time for ghosts. The house is on the hill, Silas said, pointing. Big white place. Can't miss it. I see it. Where's his office? East wing. Ruth said there's a window that faces the garden. She used to sneak out through it when Elijah was drinking. Then that's our way in. Curtis dismounted, tying his horse to a scrub pine. We go on foot from here. Stay low, stay quiet. If anyone spots us, we're done. They moved through the darkness, keeping to the shadows. The town was quiet, most folks already home for the evening. A dog barked somewhere in the distance, but no one stirred. Elijah's house loomed above them, windows glowing with lamplight. Silas could see figures moving inside. Guards, probably. Elijah wasn't taking any chances. How many men? Curtis whispered. At least a dozen, maybe more. We can't fight that many. We don't have to. We just need to get in, grab the ledgers, and get out. And Ruth, Molly... Silas's jaw tightened. I'll come back for them. Once we have proof, once Brennan can mobilize his men. That could take days. I know. Curtis studied him in the darkness. You care about her, the woman. Yeah, I do. Then let's make sure we don't screw this up. They circled to the east side of the house, staying low. The garden was overgrown, untended. Ruth had mentioned that. She'd loved gardening once before Elijah beat it out of her. The window was where she'd said it would be. Silas tested it. Locked. Let me. Curtis pulled a thin blade from his boot, sliding it between the frame and the sill. A soft click, and the window swung open. They climbed inside, finding themselves in a small study. Bookshelves lined the walls. A massive desk dominated the center of the room. The ledgers. Silas moved to the desk, trying the drawers. Locked. Step aside. Curtis knelt beside the desk, working his blade into the lock. It took longer this time, but finally the drawer slid open. Inside was a leather-bound book, thick with papers. Silas opened it, scanning the pages. Names, numbers, dates. This is it. Every bribe, every payoff, every dirty deal he's ever made. Then let's get the hell out of here. A gun cocked behind them. I don't think so, gentlemen. Silas spun around. A man stood in the doorway, revolver aimed at Silas's chest. Marcus Tate, the smart one. Hands up, both of you. Silas raised his hands slowly, the ledger still clutched in his grip. Drop the book. Silas didn't move. I said drop it. You shoot me, the whole house hears it. Your brother comes running. He sees this ledger. He sees what's in it. Silas shook his head. I'm guessing there's things in here even Elijah doesn't know about. Things you'd rather stay hidden. Marcus's face went pale. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Ruth kept these books for years. She told me about the entries that didn't add up, the money that disappeared. You've been skimming from your own brother Marcus. How do you think he'll react when he finds out? Marcus's gun hand wavered. Put the gun down, Silas said quietly. Walk away. We'll take the ledger, and you can pretend you never saw us. Elijah goes down, you disappear before anyone starts asking questions. And if I don't, then I make sure Elijah sees page 47 before the marshal does. Marcus stood frozen for a long moment. Then slowly, he lowered the gun. You've got 10 minutes. After that, I raise the alarm. That's all we need. Marcus stepped aside, and Silas and Curtis slipped past him out the window and into the night. They were halfway to the horses when Silas stopped. I can't leave her. Curtis grabbed his arm. We have the ledger. We have proof. We need to get it to Brennan. You get it to Brennan. I'm going back. Silas, that's suicide. Maybe. But I made her a promise. Silas pulled free from Curtis's grip. I told her I'd find her. I told her I'd bring her home. You can do that after we have backup. After could be too late. Silas's voice broke. You didn't see her, Curtis. You didn't see the way she looked at me when she walked away, like she was already dead, like she'd given up everything just to keep me alive. He shook his head. I can't let her think I abandoned her. Not for another day. Not for another hour. Curtis stared at him for a long moment. Then he sighed, pulling the ledger from Silas's hands. You're a damn fool, McAllister. Been told that before. I'll ride for Helena, get Brennan, get reinforcements. Curtis mounted his horse. You try to stay alive until we get there. I'll do my best. Curtis rode off into the darkness. Silas watched him go, then turned back toward the house. Ruth, Molly. He was coming for them. Inside Elijah's house, Ruth sat in the parlor with her hands folded in her lap, the picture of obedience. Every muscle in her body screamed to run, to fight, to tear this house apart until she found her daughter. But she couldn't. Not yet. Not until she knew where Molly was. Elijah paced in front of the fireplace, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He'd been drinking since they arrived, his mood shifting from triumphant to paranoid and back again. You think he's coming for you, the rancher? Ruth kept her voice steady. I don't think anything. Liar. Elijah stopped pacing, turning to face her. I saw the way you looked at him. The way he looked at you. Something happened in that cabin. Nothing happened. Don't lie to me, Ruth. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look at him. Did you let him touch you? Did you let him put his hands on what's mine? Nothing happened. Elijah studied her face, searching for the lie. Then he released her, stepping back. It doesn't matter. He's gone. Probably halfway to California by now. Men like him, they don't stick around when things get hard. Ruth said nothing, but inside she held on to hope like a lifeline. Silas would come. She knew he would. She just had to stay alive until he did. Where's Molly? The words came out before she could stop them. Elijah's expression darkened. Somewhere safe. I want to see her. You don't get to want anything. He moved back to the fireplace, picking up his whiskey. You gave up that right when you ran, when you humiliated me in front of the whole territory. She's 5 years old, Elijah. She's scared and alone. She should be scared. She needs to learn that there are consequences for disobedience. He took a long drink. You both need to learn that lesson. Please. Ruth hated the way her voice shook, hated herself for begging. But for Molly, she'd do anything. Let me see her. Just for a moment. I'll do whatever you want. I'll be the wife you wanted. Just please let me see my daughter. Elijah turned, something cold glittering in his eyes. The wife I wanted. You mean the one who doesn't run, the one who doesn't lie, the one who doesn't spread her legs for every stranger who shows her a kindness. I didn't. Don't. He slammed the glass down so hard it shattered. Don't you dare lie to me again. Ruth flinched but didn't look away. I'm not lying. Nothing happened with Silas. But even if it had, could you blame me? When was the last time you showed me any kindness, any tenderness? When was the last time you touched me without leaving a bruise? Elijah crossed the room and hit her. Ruth fell from the chair, her cheek exploding with pain. She tasted blood, felt it running down her chin. "You belong to me." Elijah's voice was low, dangerous. "You will always belong to me. And if I have to beat that lesson into you every day for the rest of your life, I will." Ruth pushed herself up onto her hands and knees, her hair hanging in her face. "Kill me then." Elijah stopped. "What?" "Kill me." Ruth looked up at him, blood on her lips, fire in her eyes. "Because that's the only way you'll ever break me. I will never stop fighting you. I will never stop trying to escape. I will never ever be the wife you want." She forced herself to stand, meeting his gaze. "So either kill me now, or spend the rest of your life watching your back. Because the moment you let your guard down, I'll be gone, and this time I'll take everything with me." Elijah stared at her. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then he laughed. "There she is. There's the woman I married." He shook his head, something almost like admiration in his eyes. "You know, I almost forgot why I chose you. The fire, the spirit. All those other women, they break so easily. But you—" He stepped closer, trailing a finger down her bloody cheek. "You just keep burning." Ruth's skin crawled at his touch, but she didn't flinch. "That's why I can't kill you, Ruth. You're too valuable. Too entertaining." He leaned in close, his breath hot against her ear. "But Molly, she's just a child. Children break so easily." Ruth's blood went cold. "Don't you dare. Behave yourself, and she stays safe. Warm. Fed. Give me any more trouble and I'll hand her over to Cole." He pulled back, smiling. "You remember Cole, don't you? My youngest brother, the one who spent 5 years in prison for what he did to that girl in Bozeman." Ruth's knees buckled. Cole. The one Elijah called dangerous. The one who looked at Molly with eyes that made Ruth's stomach turn. "Please." The word came out broken. "Please, Elijah. I'll do anything. Just keep him away from her." "Then behave." Elijah straightened his coat, checked his reflection in the mirror. "I have business to attend to. You'll stay in this room until I return. Try to leave, and Cole gets his visit early." He walked out, closing the door behind him. Ruth heard the lock click into place. She collapsed onto the floor, shaking. Molly, her baby, in this house with these monsters. "Please, Silas, please hurry." Silas crept through the shadows, working his way around to the back of the house. He'd watched the guards make their rounds, noted the gaps in their patrol. One window on the second floor was dark, the curtains drawn. That was where they'd be keeping Molly. Had to be. He climbed the trellis, testing each handhold carefully. The wood was old, brittle. One wrong move, and the whole thing would come crashing down. Almost there, just a few more feet. He reached the window, peering through the gap in the curtains. A small room. A bed. And huddled in the corner, arms wrapped around her knees. Molly. Silas's heart clenched. He tapped lightly on the glass. Molly's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide. Then slowly she crept toward the window. Silas pressed his finger to his lips. "Quiet. Stay quiet." Molly nodded, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes bright with hope. He tried the window. Locked. Of course it was locked. Silas pulled out his knife, working the blade into the frame. "Come on, come on." The lock clicked open. He slid the window up carefully, silently. Then he reached in and lifted Molly into his arms. She buried her face against his neck, her small body shaking. "I knew you'd come. I knew it." "Shh. We're not safe yet. I need you to be brave for just a little longer." Molly nodded against his shoulder. Silas climbed back down the trellis, moving as fast as he dared with a child in his arms. Every second felt like an eternity. Every sound made his heart stop. They reached the ground. Silas set Molly down, taking her hand. "Where's Mama?" "She's inside. I'm going to get her next. But first, I need to get you somewhere safe." "I'm not leaving without Mama." "Molly, I'm not leaving." Her voice rose and Silas clapped his hand over her mouth. Okay, okay, we'll get her together. But you have to be quiet. Can you do that? Molly nodded, her eyes fierce. Silas led her through the shadows back toward the window of the study. The window he and Curtis had used earlier. It was still unlocked. He lifted Molly inside, then climbed in after her. Stay here. Don't move. Don't make a sound. Where are you going? To find your mama. Molly grabbed his sleeve. Promise you'll bring her back. Silas knelt down, taking her hands in his. I promise. He slipped out of the study, moving through the darkened hallways. The house was quiet, most of the household asleep. But guards patrolled the halls, and Silas had to duck into doorways twice to avoid being seen. The parlor. Ruth had to be in the parlor. He found the door, tried the handle. Locked. Ruth. His voice was barely a whisper. Ruth, are you in there? A gasp. Then, Silas. I'm getting you out. Stand back from the door. Silas drew his knife and worked the lock. It was stronger than the others reinforced. He couldn't break it. Ruth, I need something to pry this open. Is there anything? A gun cocked behind him. Well, well. The rancher returns. Silas turned slowly. Elijah Tate stood at the end of the hallway, a revolver pointed at his chest. Behind him, 2 more guards with rifles. I have to admit I'm impressed. Elijah walked forward, keeping the gun trained on Silas. I didn't think you'd be stupid enough to come back. Most men would have run. I'm not most men. No, you're not. Elijah stopped a few feet away, studying him. You're the kind of man who gets himself killed over a woman who was never his to save. Let her go, Tate. This is between you and me. Oh, it's far past that now. Elijah's smile was cold. You stole from me. My wife. My daughter. My ledger. His eyes narrowed. Where is it? Where's the book? On its way to the territorial marshal. Elijah's smile faltered. You're bluffing. Am I? You couldn't have. There wasn't time. I had help. The color drained from Elijah's face. Marcus, that traitorous son of a... It's over, Tate. By tomorrow, every dirty deal you've ever made will be on Marshal Brennan's desk. Every bribe, every payoff, every man you've bought. Silas took a step forward. You're done. Elijah raised the gun. Maybe, but so are you. Elijah. Ruth's voice came from behind the parlor door, muffled but frantic. Elijah, don't. Please. Quiet. Elijah's hand trembled. His eyes darted between Silas and the locked door. This is all your fault. All of it. If you'd just been grateful, if you'd just accepted your place. My place. Ruth's laugh was bitter, broken. My place was never in this prison. My place was never beneath your fists. And my daughter's place will never be in your shadow. Elijah's face twisted with rage. He swung the gun toward the door. Silas moved. He tackled Elijah, driving him to the ground. The gun went off the shot, going wide, shattering a vase. The guards surged forward, but Silas was already on his feet, Elijah's gun in his hand. Don't move. The guards froze. Elijah scrambled back, blood streaming from his nose. You'll hang for this. Attacking a respected citizen in his own home. A respected citizen who kidnaps women and children, who beats his wife, who had his first wife murdered. Silas's voice was deadly calm. I don't think the jury's going to see it your way. Footsteps thundered on the stairs. More guards. Silas was outnumbered, outgunned. But he had the key. He scooped it from the floor where it had fallen from Elijah's pocket, then lunged for the parlor door. The lock clicked open. Ruth tumbled into his arms. Molly. She's safe. In the study. We need to go. Now. They ran. Behind them, Elijah screamed for his men to follow. Gunshots cracked through the hallway. Ruth stumbled, and Silas caught her, half carrying her toward the study. Molly was waiting, her eyes wide with terror. She threw herself at her mother, and Ruth scooped her up without breaking stride. Out the window, into the darkness. They ran through the garden, through the streets toward the church where Silas had left his horse. There. A guard spotted them, raised his rifle. Silas fired without stopping. The guard went down. They reached the church, found the horse. Silas lifted Ruth and Molly onto its back, then swung up behind them. "Hold on." He kicked the horse into a gallop. The animal surged forward, carrying them out of Bitter Creek and into the night. Behind them, the sound of pursuit faded. But Silas knew it wasn't over. Elijah would follow. He would always follow, unless someone stopped him for good. They rode until the horse couldn't run anymore. Silas pulled the animal to a stop near a cluster of rocks, his arms aching from holding Ruth and Molly steady. The child had fallen asleep against her mother's chest, exhaustion finally winning over fear. "We need to rest." Ruth's voice was hoarse. "The horse is done." "I know." Silas dismounted, then helped them down. "There's a cave up ahead. We can shelter there until dawn." "And then what?" "Then we keep moving. Curtis is riding for Helena. Once he reaches Brennan, once the marshal sees those ledgers." "Elijah won't wait for the marshal." Ruth's eyes were hollow. "He'll come for us himself. He'll burn down the whole territory if he has to." Silas cupped her face in his hands. "Let him come." "Silas, I mean it. I'm done running, done hiding." His voice hardened. "This ends here, tonight, whatever it takes." Ruth stared at him, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I can't lose you. Not now, not after everything." "You won't. You can't promise that." "No." He wiped her tears with his thumb. "But I can promise I'll fight for you. For Molly. For the life we could have together." He pressed his forehead to hers. "That's worth dying for, Ruth. You're worth dying for." Ruth kissed him. Hard. Desperate. The kind of kiss that said everything words couldn't. When they pulled apart, Molly stirred in Ruth's arms. "Mama, are we safe now?" Ruth looked at Silas. He looked back at her. "Almost, sweetheart," Ruth whispered. "Almost." They made it to the cave just as the first hint of dawn touched the horizon. Silas built a small fire just enough to warm them, and Ruth settled Molly on a blanket near the flames. "Sleep now, baby. I'll watch over you." "Will you be here when I wake up?" "I'll always be here." Molly's eyes fluttered closed. Within moments, her breathing deepened. Ruth sat back, her shoulders sagging. In the firelight, Silas could see every bruise, every cut, every mark Elijah had left on her. His hands curled into fists. "I should have killed him when I had the chance." Ruth shook her head. "Then you'd be a murderer. The law would hunt you. We'd spend the rest of our lives running." "Might be worth it." "No." Ruth moved to sit beside him, taking his hand. "Elijah doesn't get to turn you into something like him. That's what he does. He breaks people, twists them, makes them as ugly as he is." She squeezed his fingers. "You're better than that." "Am I?" "You saved us. A woman you'd never met. A child who wasn't yours. You gave us everything and asked for nothing in return." Ruth's voice broke. "That's not something a broken man does. That's something a hero does." Silas looked away. "I ain't no hero." "You are to me, to Molly." Ruth turned his face back toward her. "You're everything, Silas. Everything I never knew I needed." He kissed her again, softer this time. A promise instead of a plea. "When this is over," he said, "when Elijah's gone and the law's done with him, come back to the ranch with me. You and Molly. Stay." Ruth's breath caught. "Silas." "I ain't asking for anything you're not ready to give. I don't want to be alone anymore." His voice roughened. "And I don't want you to be alone either." Ruth's tears fell freely now. "Yes, yes, yes. When this is over, we'll come home with you." She smiled through her tears. "All of us. Together." Silas pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. For the first time in 4 years, the weight on his chest began to lift. They had a future. All they had to do was survive the next few hours. The sound of hoofbeats woke them. Silas was on his feet, in an instant, rifle in hand. Ruth gathered Molly, pressing back against the cave wall. "How many?" Ruth whispered. Silas peered out into the gray morning light. His blood went cold. 12 riders, maybe more. And at their head, Elijah Tate. Too many. Silas. "Take Molly, go deeper into the cave. There's a passage in the back. It leads out the other side of the ridge." "I'm not leaving you." "You have to." "No." Ruth's voice was fierce. "I spent 10 years letting that man control me. I won't let him control this moment too. Ruth, please. Give me a gun." Silas stared at her. "What? You taught me to shoot. Give me a gun." For a long moment, he didn't move. Then slowly he pulled his revolver from its holster and pressed it into her hands. 6 shots. Make them count." Ruth checked the cylinder just like he'd taught her. Her hands were steady. "Molly, baby, I need you to hide in the back of the cave. Can you do that for me?" Molly's lip trembled. "I'm scared, Mama." "I know, sweetheart. I'm scared too. But sometimes being brave means doing things even when we're scared." Ruth kissed her forehead. "Go now. And don't come out until I call for you." Molly nodded and disappeared into the darkness. Ruth turned back to Silas. "What's the plan?" "We hold them off as long as we can. Buy time for Curtis and the marshal." "And if they don't come?" Silas met her eyes. "Then we go down fighting." Ruth nodded. "Together. Together." They moved to the entrance of the cave, taking positions on either side. The riders had stopped about 50 yards out, spreading into a loose semicircle. Elijah dismounted, walking forward with his hands raised in mock surrender. "Ruth, I know you're in there." Ruth's grip tightened on the revolver. "This doesn't have to end in blood. Come out now. Bring Molly, and I'll let your rancher friend live." Silas raised his rifle. "You've got about 10 seconds to get back on that horse, Tate." Elijah laughed. "Or what? You'll shoot me. You're outnumbered 12-1. You might get me, but my men will tear you apart before you can reload. Then we'll take as many of you with us as we can." Brave words. Elijah's smile faded. "But I'm done playing games. Ruth, you have 1 minute. After that, I'm sending my men in, and I've instructed them not to be gentle." Silas looked at Ruth. She looked back at him. "I won't let him take me again," she whispered. "I'd rather die." "Yeah, it won't come to that." "You don't know that." "I do." Silas's voice was steady. "Because I made you a promise, and I intend to keep it." He raised his rifle, took aim, and fired. The shot caught one of Elijah's men in the shoulder, spinning him off his horse. Chaos erupted. "Get them!" Elijah screamed. The riders charged. Silas fired again and again, each shot finding its mark. Ruth fired too, her aim true, dropping 2 men before they could reach the cave. But there were too many. Too many guns. Too many men. A bullet grazed Silas's arm. He grunted, kept firing. Ruth screamed as a rider broke through, heading straight for her. She raised the revolver, pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. The rider raised his gun, and then his head snapped back, a red mist spraying into the air. More gunshots, but not from Elijah's men. Silas spun around. Riders poured over the ridge. 12, 24, more. At their head, a man in a dark coat with a silver star pinned to his chest. Marshal Tom Brennan. "Territorial marshals." Brennan's voice boomed across the valley. "Elijah Tate, you're under arrest for kidnapping, assault, bribery, and murder. Throw down your weapons." Elijah's men froze. They were surrounded, outgunned, outmaneuvered. "This is a mistake," Elijah shouted. "I'm a respected citizen. These people are criminals. We have your ledgers, Tate." Brennan's voice was cold. "Every bribe, every payoff, every dirty deal, including the payments to the men who killed your first wife." Elijah's face went white. "It's over," Brennan continued. "Surrender now, or we'll take you by force." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Elijah's hand moved toward his gun. "Don't do it, Tate." Elijah's fingers closed around the grip. His eyes found Ruth, and in them she saw something that chilled her to the bone. Not defeat, not fear. Rage, pure burning rage. "If I can't have you," he hissed, "no one will." He drew his gun, swinging it toward Ruth. Silas moved faster. The rifle cracked. Elijah staggered back, a red bloom spreading across his chest. He looked down at it, almost surprised. Then he looked at Ruth, his mouth working soundlessly. He fell. The silence that followed was deafening. Ruth stood frozen, staring at the man who had tormented her for 10 years. The man who had beaten her, imprisoned her, threatened to take her daughter. He was dead. It was over. Her knees buckled. Silas caught her before she hit the ground, pulling her into his arms. "It's done," he murmured against her hair. "It's done. He can't hurt you anymore." Ruth clung to him, shaking. "Molly, I need to see Molly." "She's safe. She's right here." Small arms wrapped around Ruth's legs. She looked down to find Molly staring up at her, tears streaming down her face. "Is the bad man gone, Mama?" Ruth knelt down, gathering her daughter into her arms. "Yes, baby. The bad man is gone. Forever. Can we go home now?" Ruth looked at Silas. He looked back at her, his eyes full of something she'd never seen before. Hope. "Yes, sweetheart," Ruth whispered. "We can go home." The days that followed passed in a blur. Marshal Brennan took statements from Ruth, from Silas, from Curtis. The ledgers proved everything. Elijah's network of corruption was exposed. Sheriff Dawson was arrested. Judges were removed from their positions. Half a dozen men faced charges for their part in Elijah's crimes. Marcus Tate disappeared before he could be arrested. Brennan's men searched for him, but he was gone. Some said he fled to California. Others said he went north to Canada. Ruth didn't care. As long as he stayed away from her daughter, she never wanted to hear his name again. Elijah's estate was seized. His debts were paid, and what remained by some miracle of justice was awarded to Ruth. Compensation, the judge called it, for years of suffering. Ruth donated most of it to the local orphanage. The rest she used to buy supplies for the journey ahead. "You don't have to do this," Silas said, watching her pack. "You could stay in town, buy a house, start fresh." "I don't want a house in town." Ruth folded a blanket, adding it to the pile. "I want a ranch in the valley. I want space for Molly to run. I want—" She stopped, her cheeks flushing. "I want you." Silas crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed her. When they finally broke apart, Ruth was laughing. "What's so funny?" "Nothing. Everything." She cupped his face in her hands. 3 weeks ago, I was running for my life with my daughter dying in my arms. I had nothing, no hope, no future. And then you opened your door. You're the one who knocked. And you're the one who let us in." Her eyes glistened. "You gave us your bed, your food, your protection, and you never asked for anything in return." "I got plenty in return." "What?" Silas pulled her closer. "A reason to keep living." They left for the ranch the next morning. Ruth rode with Molly in front of her, the child chattering happily about the horses she wanted to see, the flowers she wanted to plant, the dog she wanted to adopt. Silas rode beside them, listening to every word. The cabin was just as they'd left it. Cold, dark, empty, but not for long. Silas built a fire while Ruth made supper. Molly explored every corner of the small space, declaring it the best house ever, before collapsing onto the bed in a heap of exhaustion. Ruth tucked her in, smoothing the hair from her forehead. "Sleep well, baby." "Mama?" "Yes." "Is Silas going to be my new papa?" Ruth's breath caught. She looked across the room at Silas, who had frozen by the fireplace. "Would you like that?" Molly nodded sleepily. "He's nice. He makes you smile. And he promised to protect us." She yawned. "Papas are supposed to do that, right?" "Right." Ruth kissed her forehead. "Now go to sleep." Molly's eyes closed. Within moments, she was breathing deeply. Ruth stood and walked to where Silas waited. He was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You heard that," she said. "I heard. She asked if you were going to be her papa." "I heard that too." Ruth's heart pounded. "What do you think?" Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled something out. A ring. Simple gold band worn with age. "This was my mother's," he said. "She gave it to me before she died, told me to give it to the woman I wanted to spend my life with." He swallowed hard. "I gave it to Sarah on our wedding day. After she died, I couldn't bear to look at it. Put it away and tried to forget." Ruth's eyes filled with tears. "But then you came along." Silas's voice roughened. "You and Molly. And suddenly I remembered what it felt like to have something worth fighting for. Something worth living for." He took her hand. "Ruth Holloway, I ain't good with words. Never have been. But I know what I feel. And what I feel is that I don't want to spend another day without you." He held up the ring. "Will you marry me?" Ruth's tears spilled over. "Yes." Silas slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "I love you," Ruth whispered. "I love you, Silas McAllister." "I love you too." He pulled her into his arms. "Both of you. More than I ever thought I could love anything again." They stood there holding each other as the fire crackled and the night deepened around them. 1 year later, Molly ran across the meadow chasing butterflies. "Papa, Papa, look." Silas looked up from the fence he was mending, shading his eyes against the sun. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I caught one." Molly held up her cupped hands, grinning. "It's yellow like sunshine." "Well, bring it here and let me see." Molly raced toward him, her braids flying behind her. She'd grown so much in the past year. Stronger, braver, happier. Ruth watched from the porch, one hand resting on her swollen belly. "She's got your energy," Silas said, walking over to join her. "Lord help us all." Ruth laughed. "I think she's got your stubbornness." "Probably got both." He kissed her forehead, then knelt down, pressing his ear to her stomach. "How's our little one today?" "Active. Kicking up a storm." "Good. Means he's strong." "Or she." Silas grinned. "Or she." Molly bounded up the porch steps, releasing the butterfly into the air. They watched it flutter away, disappearing into the endless blue sky. "Mama, when is the baby coming?" "Soon, sweetheart. Just a few more weeks." "Will it be a boy or a girl?" "We won't know until they're here." Molly considered this. "I hope it's a girl. Then I can teach her to ride horses, and catch butterflies, and read books." "And what if it's a boy?" Molly shrugged. "Then Papa can teach him. Boys like boy things." Silas laughed, scooping Molly into his arms. "And what exactly are boy things? Hammers and fences and being grumpy." "I'm not grumpy." "You're grumpy when the cows get out." "Everyone's grumpy when the cows get out." Ruth watched them, her heart so full it ached. A year ago she'd been running for her life. Broken, terrified. Certain that happiness was something that happened to other people, never to her. And now, look at her. A husband who loved her. A daughter who was thriving. A baby on the way. A home, that was truly hers. All because she'd knocked on a stranger's door and begged for just one night in his barn. That night after Molly was asleep, Ruth sat with Silas on the porch watching the stars come out. "Do you ever think about it?" she asked. "That first night, every day. What would have happened if you'd turned us away?" Silas was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. Don't want to know." He took her hand. "All I know is that when I opened that door and saw you standing there, something changed. Something I didn't even know was broken started to heal. You saved us." "No." He squeezed her fingers. "You saved me." Ruth leaned against his shoulder, breathing in the smell of pine and wood smoke and home. "I love you, Silas." "I love you too, Ruth. More than words can say." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. And in that moment Ruth knew with absolute certainty that she had found what she'd been searching for her whole life. Not just safety, not just security, but a love that would last forever. A family built not from blood, but from choice. A home that no one could ever take away. And it had all started with a knock on a door in the dead of night, a desperate plea for shelter, and a cowboy who gave them his bed and never asked them to leave. Some people spend their whole lives looking for a place to belong. Ruth Holloway had found hers.